Okay, I'm recording now. Let me share my screen. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen, sir.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good evening once again. Last week at our last class, we started with the introduction to tax, where we explain what tax is actually all about and why tax are also very necessary to every economy, and what does the tax aim to achieve within any economy. Then we also discussed the difference between tax and taxation, where I explained to us that taxation is actually about the process by which the government creates a law and also assess. So by establishing some statutes, how the taxes will be collected and at what point will the taxes be collected and who is also uh, expected to collect what tax. And we also discussed about the canon of good tax system. We discussed the principle of the canon of equity and fairness, where we say that the taxes should be paid according to the ability of the taxpayer. Then the certainty as well. We also uh, explained that when it comes to the canon of certainty, it's actually refers to a situation whereby the taxpayer already knows how much that will be paid and at what point such tax will be paid. Then for the principle of convenience, so that is where we explain to one another that okay, when is tax supposed to be paid and how the tax supposed to be paid. So at least the what's it called? The taxpayer is expected to have an understanding about the timing of the taxes that needs to be settled. Then the economy, that's one explained that the amount that would be used to collect the tax should not be more than the tax itself, and it will not also make any reasonable sense for a taxpayer that just wants to pay as, let's say, as little as 5,000, and you are not expecting such taxpayer to be engaging a tax consultant that will be collecting like 300,000. So it means that principle of economy has not been achieved. But when it comes to a good tax system is expected to be economical in nature. And then we also discussed about the flexibility of the tax of a good tax system, where we say that a good tax system is expected to be flexible and also change. It should be expected to change with the economic situation, with the events of an economy. So a good tax system is not expected that a tax system or maybe a the way we collect tax or the way we administer our tax system should be fixed. No. So there should be a time, there should be a situation whereby if the needs require that the tax law should be revisited, should be reviewed. So that is what that one is talking about. And then we also discussed about the sustainability, where I explained to us that in terms of the sustainability, so the tax law should be operated for a longer period. It shouldn't be something that will be subject to change every now and there, so that it can give an opportunity to the foreign investors in order to plan on how they'll be able to recoup their funds, and if there is also need for them to exit the market, how would they be able to do it? So a good tax system is expected to consider all those. And then we also discussed about the simplicity and clarity. So if you go through the lecture that we had during the last class, I believe that you should be able to have more clarity regarding that. Then we also discussed about the challenges of Nigerian tax system, right? And then we also discussed how taxation could be used as a tool for economic management and development, where we emphasize on the wealth creation and employment. And then we also discussed about the stakeholders within the tax system as set out by the National Tax Policy of 2017. Then this evening, we are going to look at the tax administration as well as the uh, as well as the federal fiscal federalism and tax administration. So now, when we are talking about the fiscal federalism, what is actually uh, emphasizing on is that the process by which a revenue is generated and how such revenue is also allocated among different levels of government that we may have in every nation. So in Nigeria, we have three levels of government, right? Can you remind me of the three levels of government that we have? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay,
The three level
so
of government is it share is the state, the local, and the federal.
exactly the federal government. We also have state governments, then as well as the local government. Because the reason I ask this is that so that I can also uh, bring your mind closer to it. That because sometimes we also mix these things. So that's why I intentionally just ask you. Thank you for the response. So the levels of government that we have in Nigeria, they are basically three. We have federal government, we have state government, as well as the local government. So the fact that we have these three levels of government is also the same way that we have our tax administration, because each level of government is expected by law to have its own tax administrator. So that is what we'll be looking at this evening. And now that we have federal government, the federal government has some rights to collect some taxes, while state government also has rights to collect some taxes, as well as the local government. They also have their own rights to collect some taxes. So it is the fiscal federalism that help to expatiate and also explain which level of government is expected to collect this tax so that to avoid any form of overlapping function. Do you understand? And uh, like I said during the last class, that when we are talking about fiscal federalism, during the time that the presidential, I mean, the presidential committee on fiscal policy, when they are working on the revamping of our tax laws, at some point, some of the stakeholders who are the governors and then some elders in some other parts, I mean, some elders in other part of the country, so they kicked against it that no, some provisions of this bill will not really favor to them. It's not going to be favorable to them in the sense that the allocation system, they believe that okay, if the way we are sharing it before. Maybe we are using landmass and you now want to change the whole allocation system. So it means it's going to affect us in one way or the other. So that is what fiscal federalism is talking about. And at some point, some of them were even saying that, oh, that what the federal government is doing does not shows the true federalism. It does not show the true federalism. So, which means which means that the rights of each of the level of government, they don't want anybody to take over their rights. So that is what we are saying here. Uh, Now, federal government is also known as the central government in Nigeria, and uh, the they are responsible for the assessment and collection of taxes due from all taxable corporate entities. They also have the right to collect the taxes of the personnel of Nigerian armed forces, the employees of the Nigerian foreign armed forces, then employees of Nigerian foreign missions. So, basically, the federal government is expected to collect any taxes that relates to uh, companies, right? So that is why you will see that in most cases, when it comes to withholding tax, federal government is only collecting withholding tax that relates to companies, but not to individuals, right? But for VAT, federal government collects VAT either from individual or from companies. So all those things have been appropriately set out in the law that okay, who has a right to collect this particular type of tax. Now, when we now talk about the personnel of the Nigerian armed forces, because most of the time, these people doesn't stay in one place. So, and they are also being recruited by the federal government. So that is why basically they collect their payee, regardless of where such personnel reside. In Nigeria, our personal income tax is assessed based on where the taxpayer reside, not where the taxpayer work. So, which means that if you reside in, let's say, Agbara, and you are working in my two, so Agbara is in Lagos, I mean, is in Ogun State. Why my two is in Lagos State? So, in that case, at least based on your own understanding, who is supposed to collect the payee of such employee? An employee lives in Agbara, and this same employee goes to my two every day. Let's say the person is working at the I've forgotten the name where all these all these people normally sell electronics in Lagos. Alaba, yes. So let's say the person works at Alaba. So if a if such person is working with a company at Alaba and the person is living at Agbara in Ogun State, which state government is expected to receive the payee of such individual or such employee?
Where the person is working.
So now that is why I want to emphasize on it, and I think I've said it before. The payee of an employee is paid where the person reside, not where the person is working. I don't know if you get it now. So the person
Yes,
is
yes.
expected to pay is or are payee to Ogun State government because that is where the person resides. He is only working in Lagos State. So that one has actually been appropriately set out in our tax law. So those are the fiscal federalism that we are talking about. Then, and I made mention about the personnel of the armed forces and then personnel of the foreign missions. You know, these people they are employee of federal, they are an employee of federal government. So that is why their payee will also be remitted to federal government, but not to states. You know, we said before that personnel, the uh, personal income tax of an individual will be remitted to where the person resides, right? But we are now saying there is an exemption. There is an exemption to that, and the exemption is that when it comes to a personnel of the Nigerian armed forces, so our Nigerian forces are the militaries, the I think the militaries, the paramilitary, the police, and all those people. So they are armed forces. So what now happen is that regardless of where they reside, except only them, regardless of where they reside, their payee will be remitted to federal government and not to the states where they reside. So aside from them, every other person who resides in a place and work in other location is expected to remit his tax to the government of where he or she resides. I hope that one is clear, right?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Now, prior to 2015, every individual who resides in Abuja, they also remit their personal income tax to Federal Inland Revenue Service. But when Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service, that is also known as FCTRS, was established in 2015, so the Federal Inland Revenue Service stopped collecting all the taxes of individual who resides in Abuja, aside from those who are in Nigerian armed forces. So I'm trying to emphasize on this so that we don't get it confused. So that is what the FCTRS is now collecting now. So FCTRS is now considered as if they are also a state internal revenue service as we have them in every other state. You know, every state has their own board of internal revenue service. So for those people who are living in Abuja before 2015, when it comes to withholding tax of the individual living in Abuja, they do remit it to Federal Inland Revenue Service. So when it comes to their personal income tax, they also remitted it to Federal Inland Revenue Service. But from 2015 up till this moment, the taxes of individual are now being remitted to FCTIRS. So now, the administrator of the federal government when it comes to tax matter is Federal Inland Revenue Service. That's the administrator. So we have Federal Inland Revenue Services. So that is also known as FIRS. Sorry, please just hold on for me. I want to check something. Okay, so Uh, the administrator of the federal government is known as the Federal Inland Revenue Service. As they have the administrator, they also have the management team that serve as a check and balances to the administrator. So we'll still get there. Now, so what are the taxes that the Federal Inland Revenue Services are expected to collect? So they are expected to collect companies income tax. So for every company that are registered as limited liability company, whether private or public, so they are expected to collect their taxes. The withholding tax on companies and non-residents. We have the non-residents. So the non-residents are basically those who doesn't reside in Nigeria, but maybe, for instance, now if you have a director, hmm, let's take for instance that you have a company, and that company you have some directors, and among these directors that you have, among these directors, some of them does not reside in Nigeria. Let's say you have like five directors, and two of them reside in, let's say, UK and Malaysia. So now you want to pay directors fee. You want to pay directors fee, or you want to pay director sitting allowance. So when you are paying this director's fee or director sitting allowance, you are expected to deduct withholding tax of 10%. So when you deduct the withholding tax of that 10%, such withholding tax, these people, they do not reside in the country. So which means you cannot just go and remit it to anyhow government, anyhow state government, maybe because your company is located or is situated in Ogun State. You now go and remit to Ogun State. So if FIRS come for audit, they will pick it up and you will need to pay that at the door, that withholding tax again with interest and penalty. So, but what you are saying in essence here is that if you have the non-resident, because those two directors, they are non-resident. So when you have to pay them anything that relates to maybe director's fee, director sitting allowance, or any benefits, or less, or any benefits that attracts withholding tax, even maybe like dividend. So because they don't reside in the country, you are expected to withhold 10% of whatever you are paying them and then remit them to Federal Inland Revenue Service. So that is what we have here. Then we also have the petroleum profit tax too. So the Federal Inland Revenue Service so also collects the petroleum profit tax from the companies who are into upstream industries. Then we also have capital gain tax for companies and non-residents. So these are the taxes that we are still going to cover in the course of our learning. Then we also have stamp duties on companies and non-resident. So if an individual is paying stamp duty, maybe on your document, you have to remit such stamp duty to state government. But in this case, where an individual who is not a resident of Nigeria wants to pay stamp duties, such such stamp duties will not be remitted to the state governments, but it will be remitted to Federal Inland Revenue Service. Then we also have personal income tax. We have discussed about this extensively. We have discussed about this extensively. So then value, I've also made mention of this. Then for tertiary education tax, that we normally known as education tax. So all these taxes are normally remitted to Federal Inland Revenue Service. Any question thus far?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Then, having discussed about the federal government, the next level of government that we'll be discussing about is state government. So, each state government is responsible for the assessment and collection of taxes due from all taxable persons residents in the states, with the exception of personnel of Nigerian forces, employees of Nigerian foreign mission. So we cannot overemphasize on this. So the following are the taxes which state government are empowered to collect. So number one, we have personal income tax. We have personal income tax. We have personal income tax. Then we also have withholding taxes on individual and businesses that are not registered as a company. So if you have any businesses that are not registered as a company, so their withholding tax will also be collected by the state government. So so these are the list of the taxes that are expected to be collected by state governments. We have personal income tax, which is payee and direct assessment. So who normally do direct assessments? Number one, someone who is into a can do paid employment can do direct assessment. Aside from the payee, aside from the payee that will have been deducted by the employer that this employee is working for. You know, there might be an instance whereby you also have some income. So maybe you have some passive income like investments income. You have investments income, then you also make some profits from, let's say, your side hustle. So if you are making profit from the side hustle, you are supposed to do your self assessment and then you do direct assessments rather, and you pay whatever tax that is accrued on such direct assessment to the state government. Then we have withholding taxes on individuals. I've also explained this one that the withholding taxes that the federal government will collect, that FIRS will collect on behalf of federal government, is relating to only companies and then for the non-residents. Then we also have capital gain tax on individuals. You can see that state governments is only expected to access individuals, but not companies, right? Then stamp duties. And what we also I need to also explain something. It's not that maybe a state government cannot go to a company to carry out some audits of their tax. So if a state government is going to a company to go and carry out an assessment, so what they will be going for are likely to be two things. Number one, the payee, as the company appropriately pay the payee that is due from the employee working in that company. That is number one. Then number two, they will also go and assess if all the withholding taxes that you have deducted, maybe there are some that you are supposed to remit to the state government. So what am I saying here is that let us take for instance, I I reside in Agbara. I'm also going to use Agbara again. I reside in Agbara and I work for a company that is in Ikeja. Ikeja is known as part of Lagos State, and Agbara is known as part of Ogun State. So when I work for them, I'm an individual. They only contacted me to provide them with some service. Maybe they asked me to come and help them do some repairs or some cleaning or some services that they just contracted me for. So now I am not an employee of that company. What the company will now do is that they will withhold maybe whatever amount they are supposed to pay me, depending on the type of services that I might render for the company. So whether it attracts 10% or it attracts 5%. So what they will now do is that if they now withhold any amounts from what they are supposed to pay me, let's say I rendered cleaning services to the company, and cleaning services will be charged, will be withheld at 5%. Now, my money that they are supposed to pay me was 100,000. They now withheld 5,000, which is the 5%, and remit it. They withheld that one as a withholding tax. So they pay me my 95,000. But I reside in Agbara. Where do you think that that withholding tax should be remitted to? Hello, are
So
you with
are you
me?
asking me, sir? I was thinking
Yes,
others
yes.
were, I was thinking others should respond because I know it's basically where the person is actually working. The state
Oh,
is working.
okay. So, okay, you said the state that the person is working, right?
Yes, sir.
So, do we have any other people on the call? Because I'm not, I can't really see. Okay, we have Abdul Wahab on the call. Okay, so Abdul Wahab, I ask a question. Okay, before you join us, I don't know the points where you join us. So because what I did was just to allow everyone to join so that to avoid going back and be admitting everybody at Sintaba. So now I ask a question. So Ene has given us our own submission that where the employee work, that is where they pay the tax. But I'm also, though I've actually explained that part, that when it comes to individual, so where does that individual pay taxes? Which jurisdiction will the individual be assessed? Is it where the person reside or where the person work?
The individual will be assessed based on residence where he resides
Exactly.
because of the
So
residency rule applicable in
exact
Nigeria.
exactly. So NA, I think you are hearing this now because I have said it over and over again that when it comes to an individual, you don't pay tax where you work, but you consider where you reside. So that is why I've been using two different locations at the same time. That you reside in Agbara. Agbara is known to be part of Ogun State, but you render service to someone, you render services to company in Lagos State, let's say in Ikeja. Whether you render service to a company in Ikeja or your company that you are working is in Ikeja, that they are deducting payee from your money, or you render services that they are deducting withholding tax, they are not supposed to remit that withholding tax to the revenue authority where that work has been carried out, but where you reside. So when it comes to individual assessment, it is based on residency. And I have said this over and over again. So, you said that your own understanding is where you work, but it is not where you work. So that is why you are in this class so that to have a better understanding about it. Now, moving on, uh, the stamp duties on instrument executed by individual. So, like I explained earlier, the stamp duties for the companies and other non-residents will be remitted to FIRS. It will be remitted to FIRS. Stamp duties on companies. If a company wants to pay stamp duty on their documents, it is to be remitted to Federal Inland Revenue Service. Then we also have pools, betting and lotteries, gaming and casinos. Then road taxes, business premise, registration fee. At least I know of this one very well. If you before LRS can give you a payer ID, if you register, whether you are a company that is registered under private or public limited, or you are an individual who register under business name. So if you need any payer ID from Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, you will need to first pay business registration fee. Then you will also pay development fee. So this development fee is 100 naira per the number of employees that you have in your company, in your workforce. But for the business registration fee, sometimes it also depends on how the state governments are structured, how the payments will be collected, or how either companies or individual will also be assessed based on the location. Because I know that there are some companies that maybe they are situated within the industrial estates. So what such company will be paying as registration fee will quite be different from a company that is located at maybe at some part of the state that does not really that is not a major commercial center for that state. So then we also have naming of streets registration fees. If you want to name a street or you want government to give you streets, so that would be you want so the payments will also be made to the state government. Then right of occupancy. So if you own a land, we have a land use charge. We have what to call land use charge. So it should be paid to the Lagos state government. Then uh we now have okay occupancy fees on land owned by state governments in urban areas of the state market and levies where the state's finance is involved. Because there are some levies where local government is supposed to be collected, maybe from the market. But if it's involved the financing, if such markets involves financing of the state government, automatically state government will also be collecting such levies. So moving on to local governments as the last level of governments in Nigeria. So the local government is empowered to collect taxes on the following. So they are to collect taxes on kiosks and shops, tenement rates, liquor license fee, slaughter, marriage, birth and death certificates, naming of streets, excluding any streets in the state capital. So aside from the state in the state capital, other local governments, if anybody wants to name the streets, the local government is empowered to collect any levy that such what's it called naming of streets attracts. Then right of occupancy fees in rural areas. Then we also have market taxes. Then we also have motor park, domestic animal fees, and we also have bicycle trucks, radio and television license, road parking charges, public convenience, sewage and refuse disposal fees. then signboard. So these are the taxes that each level of government are empowered to access an individual on and to also collect. Now, any question before we move to the organs of tax administration? Any question, please? Okay, in the absence of question, let us move on. Having identified the levels of government that we have, and in my earlier discussion, in my earlier explanation, I made it known that each level of government also has their own administrator. They also have their own administrative body that assists them to perform the function of collecting revenue from every meaningful individual or companies or taxpayer who resides in that jurisdiction. So for the federal government, we have Federal Inland Revenue Service Board. So Federal Inland Revenue Service Board is the management team. So this is the management team of FIRS. So what is their function? Their function is to ensure that they administer taxes on the profit of incorporated companies. And this management, they now vested the task of collecting taxes on another establishment known as Federal Inland Revenue Service. Now, let me use an example. You know, we have KAMA. We have KAMA, right? So KAMA is a law. So as we have this law now, we now have CAC. So CAC is the administrator of KAMA. Are we getting it now? So the same way that we have this, so the what's it called? So FIRS now, they are the one that is saddled with the responsibility. So they have to carry out the functions. They have to carry out any functions that are being given by the board. So the board is more or less like the management team, they are the governance team, they are the one that serve as the check and balances of what FIRS is doing. So the composition of FIRS-B that is known as the management of FIRS, they have the executive chairman. We know that all the executive chairman of FRS is appointed by the president. At least I can name three that I know very well, since I can say that okay, I that I've been able to differentiate my left from my right. At least during the uh, government of our late president, our former late president Buhari. So he appointed Sunday Fowler, and then he also appointed Nami something. Then now we have Zacchaeus Adedeji. So and these people will be appointed by the president. Uh, then and the appointment will be ratified. It will be ratified by national by House of Senate by House of Senate. So these are people that were rational, I mean, that we ratify their appointment. Then we also have 6 members, one per geopolitical zone, which means there will be a member that will be representing Southwest. We have one that will be representing South South, South Southeast. Then we also have the one that will be representing Northwest, Northeast, and then North Central. So these are the 6 geopolitical zones that we have in Nigeria. Then there will also be a representative of Federal Ministry of Finance as part of the management team of FIRS. Then we also have a chairman of Revenue Mobilization Allocation or Revenue Mobilization and Allocation fiscal committee, right? So at least a representative which shall be any of the commissioners representing the 36 states. So there will be just only the chairman of that of RMAFC, which is Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Committee. So uh, is either the chairman is serving in the board or the chairman has a representative that will be serving, and that representative shall be a commissioners that will represent the 36 states. Then we also have the GMD of the NNPC. So if the GMD of the NNPC is not among the board, at least there should be a representative who is not below a rank of executive director of the NNPC. Then we also have Comptroller General of the Customs or its representative, then Registrar General of CAC, then Accountant General of the Federation, two private sector members from tax, or they may be a tax expert or accounting expert, and then secretary appointed by the board. So these are the composition of the FIRS board. Then what is their power? Their power is to ensure that they administer the law. They also assess and collect federal taxes. So, we've been talking about federal government, the federal inland. So, that is their function. That's one of their power. They also make rules, regulations for tax administration, and they also approve FRS plan or policies. Like it was explained earlier, FRS is FRS is established. So their board is FIRSB. So which means FRS is just like they are like a unit that is carrying out the responsibility that has been vested upon them by FIRSB. So and then they also carry out any incidental to tax operations. And we also have the duties. What is their duties? They will set policy directions, they will supervise the FIRS, they will approve the FIRS. So basically, they set, supervise, and then approve FIRS budget. They also promote the modern technology, and then they also oversee tax treaty negotiation and implementation. Now, within this FRSB, we have what we call technical committee. So, what is the work of technical committee? Who are the members that are in technical committee? So, we have the executive chairman of FRS as chairman. He will be the one that will act as the chairman. Then all the directors and heads of departments of the FIRS, then the legal advisor, and as well as the secretary to FIRSB. So, what is the function of the technical committee? Their function is to review and recommend proposal. They will advise on technical tax matters. They will prepare reports and position papers. They will also implement board technical decisions. Then they review and also recommend rulings and circular. So, which means that FIRSB, so they have these two teams. They have FIRS, and then they also have the technical committee. So this FIRS now, what they perform basically is the operations. So they are the one that perform the operations. Why these people give a technical advice where it requires technical advice where it requires. So then now, what are the responsibilities? What are the responsibilities of the FRS? So number one, they will assess you. They will perform the assessments on what you have submitted if you have done the right thing or not. They will also collect the taxes that they have assessed you on, and they will also ensure that they account for the taxes that they have collected over time. They will also ensure that they enforce compliance with tax laws. So, how do they enforce the compliance? So, they may give you a notice of restraint. And when they give you a notice of restraint, what it means is that you will not be allowed to enter your office to carry out any commercial activities until you settle the matter that you have with them. So that is for us to understand that they can enforce compliance. And another way they use to enforce compliance is through penalty, through fines. So if someone or if a company that's supposed to remit tax or file returns did not do that on time, they will make sure that they sanction you. And in the process of sanction, what they are telling you is that you still need to comply. They will enforce that compliance on you. Then they also maintain national taxpayer database. There are sometimes I'll just be looking. There are sometimes that FRS will just tell you, okay, I think there was a time during the era of Tunde Fowler. So FRS just sent the mail to all the banks that these companies, they should put post no debits on their accounts. So there is no way FRS does not know about the people that are doing business, except if they do not just want to go ash on the companies and on the businesses. Now, I have an experience back then, maybe in 2019, one of our clients. So we are trying to, okay, one of what happened there was that they serve an assessment letter to our clients, and our clients brought that assessment letter. So we asked the clients, please give us all the bank statements so that we can analyze. The bank said, the client said that he has provided us with everything. Now, when we go to FIRS is now telling us that there is this particular bank account in the name of this company that the company is yet to report. So that is for you to know that if FIRS really wants to work, they will definitely get to the matter of whatever they want to do. So they also recommend tax law amendments. Maybe if there is an issue or if there is controversy around interpretation of a tax law, that people have been going to court and they've been taking them to court on their own position. So FRS can just make sure that maybe they have someone in the National Assembly and then they will discuss about it. And before you know it, it will be approved. Then the next one is uh, they also issue rulings, circulars, and guidelines. Many a times you will see their circulars, then their guidelines, and then the issues that they have rulings on. Then they conduct audit, investigations, and enforcements, taxpayer education and sensitization. Yeah, during the time of Tunde Fowler, I knew that there was a time during that time they normally carry out tax education series. I think it was every Monday around 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So that is also one of the functions that they have to carry out. They are also to use the modern tax uh, infrastructure. Then, now they are even talking about e-invoicing. You know that before now, people used to file manually. You will need to go to their office. You will fill the assessment form. When you fill the assessment form manually, you will now stamp it. After stamping, then you now take it to their office. So that is when they will now come back and start telling you that, okay, they have done their own desk review. This is what you are supposed to pay, blah, blah. They start. But now, even before you carry out your returns, before you conclude your returns, you will have seen how much that you will pay, so that if you did not, if your own computation is wrong, you will see what their own computation will be. And then the duties of, they also have secretary to the FRSB. So what is the duty of the secretary? So the secretary, we all know that the main function of the secretary is to issue notes of meetings, then to keep the record of the meeting, and to carry out other duties that may be directed by the executive chairman of the board. Then we have joint tax board. So joint tax board is established under Personal Income Tax Act, and their purpose is to serve as an advisory and harmonization body for administration of personal income tax across the country. So the composition of the joint tax board, we have chairman of the FRS as the chairman of the JTB. We also have one representative from each state board of internal revenue in person of the chairman of the state. So what we are saying here is that among the joint tax board committee, their chairman is the executive chairman of FRS. Then the chairman of state inland revenue services. So they will also be part of the board member, which is the joint tax board. Then they also have the legal advisor, and then they also have a secretary who is experienced in tax matters. Now, what is the function of the JTB? They exercise their powers as it contains in the PITA, Personal Income Tax Act. They also advise the federal government on double taxation and the rates of capital allowances and other nationwide tax matters. So that is the major work of JTB. Their major work is to ensure that they advised on the harmonization of taxes, and then they also give a rate on the capital allowances, and they also promote uniformity in the application of PITA and in the incidence of tax on individuals across Nigeria. Then we also have State Board of Internal Revenue Service. So the composition of this is the executive chairman. So executive chairman of the State Internal Revenue Service. So for the State Internal Revenue Service, they are the management team of each state's internal revenue service. So the state board of internal revenue. So they are the management team, as we have Federal Inland Revenue Service Board to be the management team of FRS. Then we also have the same with the State Board of Internal Revenue that serves as the management board to the State Internal Revenue Service. So who are the member of the State Board of Internal Revenue? We have executive chairman. So, and this executive chairman must have experience in tax and must also belong to a recognized professional body, maybe ANAN, CITN, ICAN, whichever one it is. Then they are appointed by the state governor, subject to confirmation of the State House of Assembly. The chairman of the FRS is appointed by the president upon the ratification of the Senate. But for the State Board of Internal Revenue, the chairman will be appointed by the governor, and then the the State House of Assembly will ratify that appointment. They also have directors, and that director may be selected from within or outside the state service. Then they also have representative, a director from the ministry to ensure financial oversight. The legal advisor will also have their own functions and power. And they also have their own technical committee as well. So the technical committee is also to ensure that they also give a technical advice or technical expertise on tax related matter. They also advise the board on its power and duties and also attend any other matters as may be referred from time to time. So we also have joint state revenue committee. Joint state revenue committee. So we have chairman, we have local government representative, and then we also have federal and observation rules. So that is for the State Board of Internal Revenue Committee, which is the Joint State Revenue Committee that we have. Then for the Local Government Committee, the chairman is the supervisor of finance, then 3 local government councillors as members, 2 other persons experienced in revenue matters to be nominated by chairman, and they also have their own function as well. So these are basically all the organ of governments with their tax administration. So any questions? So that is all what I have here. So any question so far? Any questions so far? So I want to believe that all the explanation is clear to the student on the call this evening. So I will not want us to rush this, so that because this is more or less like a written and then the reading one. So for us to go back and digest, so at least the remaining time that we have, let us just try and go back and revisit it. So apparently from Sunday, we might likely move to the calculation part once we are able to discuss the assessment, how we carry out assessment, how we object assessment, and how we also respond to assessment. Because these are the various parts that requires report writing. Because in advanced tax profession, in advanced tax, so basically what really matters, what it really requires is our report writing. So we may likely start that one from Sunday, so that it's not just look as if we are all the thing we are doing is just writing. So at least by the time we start, I think we'll also be able to appreciate it more. So that is all from my end this evening. So any question, I'll stop presenting. So Mr. Sadiq, do you have any observation or any submission before we call it a class this evening? Okay, so in the absence of questions, so I think I will be drawing the curtain at this junction. And by God grace, we'll be meeting on Sunday at our normal time, 5 p.m. Thank you for your time and have a very good evening.